here's Brody Brazil.
You know, it feels like the word unprecedented gets used a lot here in 2020, and for obvious and good reason. But that word can also be used to describe how Bob Boughner shed his interim title in San Jose. As of today, he's the 9th head coach in Sharks franchise history. Now, I say unprecedented because how many times have you ever seen in following sports somebody lined up to be the next head coach of a team, and that job is open, but it just doesn't officially get announced? And I'm not suggesting there was anything crazy going on here. It's just a matter of we're in a pandemic and there are some other things going on, and the Sharks as a business decided to operate it this way. But we all had this great indication that Bob would eventually be the guy. Everything that was said, body language, reading between the lines, like 99.9% sure it was going to be Bob Boughner. I mean, this news that came out today, quite honestly, it easily could have been announced 4, 5, maybe even 6 months ago. But everybody had to play the waiting game, including Bob. I talked to him earlier today about having patience, but maybe that patience was easier to come by because everybody knew this is what would happen.
Well, I mean, Doug has come out and said that in the past that I was the front runner, which is good to hear, but you never really truly, believe it until it's done. And Doug's been amazingly fair during the process and thorough. He's allowed me to go out and bring a handful of candidates to him who I thought might work, and we vetted through that and went through that process. And till we got down to the two guys that we announced today, and Rocky Thompson and John Madden, guys that I have a lot of respect for. And they checked a lot of my boxes, and that was important for me. And Doug allowed me to go through that process. So I wasn't concerned about how long it was taking. For me, it was just doing it the right way.
Another thing I talked to Bob about today is the whole aspect of the second time around, as opposed to being a rookie head coach in the NHL like he was recently with the Florida Panthers. I think this is something we can all relate to. Even if you're around something all your life, it's totally different when you are the person in charge, when you are the head coach, when you have all that ultimate responsibility and it's kind of new to you. Again, this is a human instinct where you just learn tricks. And I don't want to say shortcuts, but you learn to be more efficient and know exactly what to put into something so you can get a result out of it. So Bob definitely feels like he's got a lot of benefits going into a head coaching position in this second time around.
What do you think? I knew the guys from being an assistant coach a few years back. We had a lot of success on that, Stanley Cup run. And then I left for my job in Florida and back as an assistant again before the coaching change last year. So, there were some new faces, but a lot of the same ones. So I have that relationship and I believe that mutual respect between myself and the players. I think, being able to go from assistant coach to a head coach with the same group of guys is a little more difficult. You're not coming in on a fresh start. This has allowed me to sort of, hit the reset button, treat this as chapter one. Even though I had a little experience last year with these guys, I think it's a completely different situation. Me coming in, having my own staff, there's going to be a freshness, a newness to this, the way our plan is presented, the way we're going to play, our style of play, all those things. But, coming back, basically knowing that I'm the head coach and I get to plan for training camp and bring in my staff, I think is going to go a long way. And I do believe I'll be better the second time around. I think that one of the advantages I had last year is being very familiar with some of the young guys that we pulled up at the end of the year.
Right.
I think that's going to be huge for me to already see what they can do and what they have and how they handle themselves in a difficult situation last year. So in that regard, I think it's going to be a better situation for me. But more than anything, it's just being able to use that knowledge I have from my first job in Florida, my experience with some of these guys before, and bringing in my new guys.
Well, there's no question if the Sharks want different results from their next season, they're going to have to change a lot of things from their previous campaign. I mean, this was a group built for success that, for whatever reason, just could not find it on a consistent basis. Bob said his team is going to play a totally different style in all three zones of the ice. Now, I think what's interesting about that is if, in fact, they do return a large group of existing players, how do you coach certain things into them? And maybe how do you coach certain things out of them? And it's not to say that what Pete DeBoer was doing in San Jose before Bob took over, it's not to say these are negatives, but yeah, if you're not getting results, I mean, you have to take a different approach. So I talked to Pete about just the coaching aspect of trying to present the players with something new.
Yeah, and that's where you'd love to have a full training camp and get that under your belt. And who knows what that's going to look like when we start. But these guys are the best in the world at what they do. They're elite players. They pick up on things very quickly. And the key is more than anything is the buy-in and getting these guys. Okay, here's what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it. And letting them see having success within that. And then that's where you receive your buy-in. And when I say things are going to be new. What we've done this summer is basically, we've dug in, did a deep dive into our personnel, number one. And we're not just changing things for the sake of changing things. We want to match what we have personnel and what's going to make them the most successful. So there's going to be a lot of great new looks and things for these guys to get excited behind. I
want to point out something right now, which I'm sure you've probably already thought of. Here we are in late September of 2020. This would be the time of year when training camps have just started, and we're usually right around the corner from an 82-game regular season. Clearly, that is not happening anytime soon here in 2020. In fact, my best guess is 2021, even at the earliest, which would put the Sharks, who have played their last game in mid-March, at a 9-month, maybe 10-month span between games that had any meaning. And again, that still might be a best case scenario. We know that rest can help any group, but there has to be a difference in 9+ months of rest versus rust, and even to the extent of the prevention somehow of players from getting stale. Now, that might be an exaggeration. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit, but think about it this way. These are athletes who their entire lives, they've worked on a rhythm, they've worked on repetition. Yes, they have off seasons for a certain reason, but only of a certain duration. And so they're going through something they never have before, being away from this high level of competition and then having to come back to it. And I'm not saying they're not capable of getting back to it. Don't get me wrong. And the Sharks are definitely not the only team in this situation, but yeah, it might be a concern and it might be a precaution that the Sharks are going to have to guard against. How can they avoid their players getting stale?
Yeah, I think it's a major concern, and we're all going to be in the same boat. I mean, there's teams that are playing deep now, but even the teams that went to the bubble and got knocked out 3 or 4 or 5 games in, they're going to be sitting in a similar position. So yes, it's a worry, but that's number one. That's on the players. They got to make sure that they're doing the right things and keep themselves in shape and following the programs and getting the ice when they can, those kind of things. But
yeah,
from my perspective, is getting in is basically. Making sure that, we want to shake the rust off is a fine line. How much you push them too early. You want to prevent injuries. You want to do all these things, but it's not a perfect science. I think that the one advantage we'll have is our guys that went through a few major surgeries. The Tommy Hurdles, the Logan Couture's. I mean, Erik Karlsson had off-season surgery. Those things will be healed up and they'll be ready to go. And the biggest thing for me is, none of us are happy or proud of what went on last year. They got a bad taste in their mouth coming back. They have something to prove. So I think that might be a little ammunition.
As much as Boughner and his coaching staff are going to try and work with this team on the ice, improve their strategy, improve their tactics, there's also an aspect of rekindling inside the dressing room that I think we all understand probably needs to happen. Because think about all the winning this team did over all the years and how that always seemed to enhance chemistry within the group. And then you go through a season like last year where there is some adversity and there's a lot of losing. You go from enhancing your group to potentially having it erode a little bit. Bob said that's definitely something that the coaching staff has to address.
Yeah, I mean, losing can be contagious, and you can start to form bad habits. And we were going to address that and talk about that. In order for us to have success on the ice, we have to be a tight team, and we have to have that family atmosphere in the dressing room, and that's created from the top down. And that's myself. That's the new guys I brought in. They match me in a lot of different ways. The way we see the game, the way we want to have accountability in our game and in our dressing room, and that's going to help number one. But moving forward, I think the players. The one good thing is you learn from your experiences, and whatever happened last year, and however we handled ourselves or acted within the 4 walls of our dressing room, didn't work. And
Yeah.
that's the best medicine you can have. I mean, we know there needs to be change. That's my job and my staff's job to make sure that environment's created. But we have great people in the room, and they care, and they want to win, and they want to win together. So I think it's just going to be these guys, taking the experience they had last year, having a bad taste in their mouth, coming back and giving all of themselves and buying in and acting as a family. And I think that's going to do wonders for, how we're going to perform on the ice.
Looking back, it becomes a little bit more clear maybe why the Sharks took their time in not only announcing a head coach, but also the coaching staff as a whole, which includes Rocky Thompson and John Madden as assistants, both those guys with direct playing experience in the NHL. Bob said that checked a huge box, that he wanted his staff to have real-life playing experience in this league to better translate and better connect to the current Sharks players.
Yeah, I can't imagine anything more important than bringing in people that have been through it. And, these guys, both guys have had great long careers as professional hockey players, but, taking a step further, John Madden won 3 Stanley Cups and a Selke Award as a player. So it just proves, this guy's been a part of some winning cultures. And, the Selke Award speaks to his detail in his game and how he approached the game every night. Rocky, same thing. I mean, he's had a lot of success as a coach in many leagues, junior and pro. And that was important for me. And probably the last thing I would say is, that instant credibility. These guys are going to walk in that dressing room, and the players are going to have instant respect. They carry they carry themselves with a lot of pride. They're proud guys. They love the game. They're fun to be around, and they're very knowledgeable. And I think that's what the players want. They want to see newness, freshness. They want to see someone that's going to come in that room and make a difference.
So all of this brings us back to the present, and nobody really knows when a next NHL season could begin. But it does still beg the question, what does Bob Boughner and his coaching staff hope to get accomplished with all of this downtime? How can they make the most of this? And how can they get a head start on a next season?
I think just, constantly preparing. I think that we want to, and we have done a lot of work already on, getting through our systems and getting through the new approach and new plan that we want to present, not just about, the on ice, but also the off ice. And, for me, a short-term goal is getting into the office here a little bit and getting job descriptions down and getting some, some things prepared for whenever that date is. And so we're excited for it. I mean, everybody hears the dates have been floated around, but until you hear anything, obviously, it's tough to prepare for that exact date. But rest assured, we're going to be very, very detailed and prepared, and I'm excited to present the new plan.
In conclusion, I think it's really important to realize this. This is not the same Sharks group that we saw out there 3 or 5 or 7 years ago. And for basically the last decade, expectations in San Jose were especially sky high. Stanley Cup or bust. And that's a high bar to live up to. I just want to make clear that as we see changes with this team, as we see them retool, realign, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to hold them to those standards. They should hold themselves to that standard, and I think they will, and I absolutely know they will. But from the outside looking in, I think what's realistic is to look for direct improvements in a lot of different areas. And if you can start to measure that, you're definitely back on the right track to have the Stanley Cup conversation again.